Okay, four, three, two, one, and we are rolling. Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to podcast from A to Z with Anya Zova, and I have an amazing guest today. I had an honor working with him on set once, and he made it a very pleasurable experience. Very, very talented and very nice gentleman, Dirk Blocker. Welcome.
Hey, hello, hello, hello.
Hello. So good to
Um,
see you.
so good to see you. You know what you said, there was very complimentary things you just said is the main reason I'm here is because I felt the same way about you. You were such a good sport. No matter what we asked, you said yes, of course, and we just had a great time. It was so much fun.
It was amazing time. Yeah, actually, Dirk is my first husband. We got married on set. And if you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I don't know, it was season 7 or something, one episode, I played Dirk's wife, and then I cheated on him and got pregnant from somebody else. uh,
Yeah, yeah. It was. She was up to no good.
no, no, I was trouble. But yeah, thank you. It was I always was telling everybody, all my friends, it was one of the most enjoyable experiences being on set with you and your team. It was just like fun. It's a true
It
family.
it was a great experience for all of us. I think we all got along like gangbusters, and it became like a family, like you say. And I don't remember ever having any kind of issues with anybody over anything for the whole 8.5 years we did it. It was just a pleasure going to work every day.
Well, it's incredible. Well, tell me how it started. So you've been on set with Brooklyn Nine-Nine for 8 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I was there from the beginning. We were in the pilot, but there was no guarantee when my partner Joel McKinnon Miller and I played the old farts of the in the police station. The kind of the guys who are trying their best just to live long enough to get their retirement in place. We had no interest really in being cops anymore, but it was great that they made us two the doofuses because he and I got along so well.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it was just the deal we made to do the pilot was just the pilot and possibly come back for a reoccurring here and there, maybe once in a while. And we were invited to every single episode in the first season. And one of the things Joel and I did because there was really nothing much written for us,
Mm-hmm.
and the producers and the writers and the director and everybody, they were so busy trying to really figure out the main cast, how the relationships would all work with each other, and trying to figure them all the characters out. That Joel and I just thought, well, instead of us just sitting back there like a couple of bean bags in the background, they're paying us. Why don't we try to come up with some funny stuff that at least make each other laugh? Let's just make each other laugh, which is what we did. And the more we did that, the producers would come back and say, keep doing that. That was really funny. And then finally they started saying, "Do you need anything else? We'll tell the props. Get anything you want from props. We want you guys to keep doing this." And so we just, so when we weren't working, we weren't upstairs, taking a nap or shooting the breeze or eating potato chips. Well, we might have been eating a few potato chips, but primarily we were up there saying, "What can we do? What can we do that won't take away from the scene that we're a part of, but we don't have anything really written for us." But what can we do to add to this?
Mm-hmm.
What could we possibly be doing that would be in character for these two old farts, but at the same time not detract too much from what's going on? We don't want to be upstaging anybody.
Right.
And so we just work things out. And I don't think they ever once told us that's too much, guys. Back off. They were always like, "That's so great. Oh, that's Andy Samberg loved us. He
Yeah.
would come and he would say, 'What are you guys doing now?' 'Oh God, that's so great.'" So we were encouraged to do all of our shenanigans. And then at the end of the first season, we got a call. I got a call from my agent, my manager, and they just said, "Well, we've got pretty good news. What's that?" They want to make you guys regulars. They want you to be, because we just kept being invited back to
Mm-hmm.
each new episode. So every time we get invited back to an episode, Joel and I would high five and say, "Man, we got another job! Yeah, fantastic!" And then at the end of the year, it's like, "No, we want you to. You're going to do all of them." And we never missed. Well, there were one or two episodes we weren't in, but we were still regulars on the show, so it didn't much matter, really.
That's incredible, and this is so inspiring for everybody. So you took initiative, you stayed respectful to the main characters, and you created something magical. And because you were playful, right? You were playful and respectful at the
You-
same time.
Yeah, we kind of treated it as our professional sandbox. It was there. We were there to go play. We were there to have fun, and not. But again, like respectful, like you say, just knowing. No, we've both been in the business for many, many years, decades, really,
Hmm.
both of us. So we kind of knew how things worked. We knew how things worked. But one person, I won't mention their name, but one person actually said to us at one point, you know, the people who are doing this show are all really funny, with the exception of, um, but they have very little experience on a TV series,
Hmm.
with the exception of Andre Brower and Terry Crews.
Hmm.
Really, I think that's about it. And Chelsea had been a writer on shows and had appeared on some shows, but as far as how to go about, you know they're all excellent actors, and they all had lots of experience with improv, and then experience on stage and so forth and so on. But at any rate, one person had said to us, I think it was a director actually, who had said to us, it's really good that you guys are here, because whether you know it or not, you're being watched by these younger people who are kind of, you know seeing how you go about you doing your business.
Hmm.
And I know at one point during the second or third season, one of the actors on our show, who I won't mention either, said, "I'm going to be just like you guys this year. I'm not going to be late once."
You set up
because
the tone for the
because
crew.
well, we came from the old school where
Hmm.
you're not 1 minute late.
No,
It'd be better to be 1 hour early than 1 minute late.
1 minute
Was
late.
the was our was the what we grew up hearing, and it was the truth.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little technologically, so it's not as a waste of time is still a waste of time. But if they're having to wait for you, that doesn't work well. So
Yeah, it doesn't
we were
matter how
always
big.
ready. We were always ready to go the minute they called us. So
Yeah, and I remember working with you, like you always come up, oh, why don't we try this? Or let's try to dance this way. Like you always, like your brain never stops, not even for a second.
well, it helps, like I said earlier, to have a partner in the scene who is so willing, as opposed to saying, "No, I don't think I want to try that." It's like so great to have someone says, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's try it. What the heck?"
Yeah, I'm a
Um,
yes woman.
Yeah, yeah, and that made it so much fun, and it really makes things better. I mean,
Mhm.
on a rare occasion, a person might need to say no for some reason or other,
Mhm.
for their personal
Yeah,
psychology or whatever. But unless there's a good reason to say no, you should always say yes. You should always try.
yeah.
And my feeling was, one of the reasons I got along so well with the production and with the show, and everybody on our show did, was because we would do things as written, kind of to the note,
Hmm.
um, and that was usually what they used. But quite often, I would check with the director, or the director might come talk to us or whatever, and I'd always, "Do we have exactly what you need from us in that sequence?" "Yes." Good. So now let's try something else. Let's do something.
Yeah.
Let's give them options. Let's give them options. That's always, you know, um, and that works for me in dramatic work as well as
Mhm.
comedic work. It's like, why should it ever be played exactly the same way twice? I mean, if it needs to be, if it should be, then I can match it. I can
Mhm.
match anything. But if you've got it one way and you want to keep
Yeah.
shooting it, then maybe this time let's try it with a little of this. Let's throw this spice in. Let's throw that spice in. Let's
Yeah,
turn the
let's
heat up. Let's
try
turn the heat
something
down. Let's
new.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, try something new. Yeah.
different variations. Well, how did you get into acting? Because I always ask my guests about like A to Z in your career. Like what was the starting point? Point A.
Well, I'm a bit of a nepo baby. Baby, I think that's what they call them nowadays.
Hmm.
And that my father was a well-known actor back in the '60s. He
Hmm.
was a very successful guy, and he made a lot of friends in the business. And he died young, and I was very young when he died. I was 14, and when I was 15, I was doing a play in high school, and there was an agent in the audience, and he was for real. He wasn't a gimmicky guy. And I hadn't given, really, to tell you the truth, I hadn't given much thought. I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, but he just said, "Hey, if you would like to give this a try, we could probably get some work going."
Yeah.
So, admittedly, the first several times, I'm sure that I walked into somebody's door to audition, largely it was because, well, who his father was, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And like I say, my father seemed to be very, very well liked in the business.
Mhm.
Um, and I just have had that experience. I've had multiple crew members and cast members come up to me and say, "Man, I knew your dad. He was a great guy." Blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah. I said, "Sure, why not?" Just like almost like on a whim, while I was still in high school, and I started getting cast and stuff. I'd audition and get cast, and the only thing that was really slowing me down at all is that because I wasn't 18 years old yet, and
Mhm.
I was still in school, they could only use me certain hours of the day, and they had to
Mhm.
have a teacher on the set. Blah, blah. So I just knuckled down, took as many classes as I could, went to summer school, and got out early because it
Nice.
was kind of holding me back a little bit.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was able to go off and start working, and I kind of never looked back. To tell you the truth, I was very very lucky, and I met the needs of whoever was doing a pilot or a TV show or guest. I most did a lot of guest starring roles and a lot of co-starring
Mhm.
roles, and things like that, and even occasional theater. Most people start out in the theater and then go to film and television. It's kind of the backwards for me. And I grew up on sets, so I
Mhm.
kind of knew what that whole world was about, and I kind of knew. I didn't kind of know. I knew exactly what that world was all about. I felt like I fit right in. It felt like putting on a glove. I just felt like it felt right.
Yeah, it felt like
So
home. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it did. And like I say, I'd run across so many, especially when I was starting, ran across so many people in the business who wanted me to talk to me about my dad and what he had meant to them because he was a generous, kind person. So he made a lot of friends in the business, and they likewise treated me very well.
Mhm.
And I have nothing but gratitude for how incredibly fortunate I am and have been because when I'd be in acting classes and this and that and the other, doing plays or whatever, I'd be around people my age, and they were so talented, and yet I was getting opportunities that they weren't getting. So I didn't take it for granted. I mean, at least the best of my memory, I don't think I hope I never took anything for granted because I did understand how fortunate I'd been and how rare an opportunity like that was. I
Mhm.
didn't let it go to waste, and I studied hard and I worked hard, and it's a never-ending process. You keep working and working and working, and there's always more to learn. So
Yeah, and you never know when you're gonna get a next job.
that's true.
Yeah,
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah, you never know. That's right.
What is your dream role? Do you have one?
I wouldn't say that I have a dream role in mind. I had no idea about Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And even though I wasn't one of the main characters in that show, that was a dream job. I mean, that was just so much
Mm.
fun because they they seemed to really like what I brought to the table,
Mhm.
and then they started learning how to write for me, which encouraged me to do more, find more things to do. And so no, I've been lucky enough to work with some major league directors and filmmakers and done some stage work with people that I was really proud of, and so no, I like it all. To me, the approach to comedy and the approach to drama is for me is pretty much the same thing. My job is to make it real. I've got
Yeah.
to make it real for me, and if I make
Mhm.
it real for myself, then it's real. Hopefully, then it's real for the audience, and then they can go along with this story that we're trying to tell. We're just all part of a story. It's
Yeah.
like the image I have of when the work is really good is as if I've disappeared into a book or into a
Mhm.
script, and I'm one of those characters that come along when you turn the page and the lead character turns the corner, and there I am waiting for him. So what the hell, that kind of thing. So I don't necessarily have a dream job. No, I don't have that kind of idea. I've worked with a lot of great people and never been terribly disappointed. I don't think with anybody or anything. That seemed to me the most talented people tended to be the kindest and the most generous.
That's very
And
true.
that's been my experience. So
Yeah.
no, I don't really have a everything's so good. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I don't want to keep working, but at the same time, if I don't if I don't continue working, it's okay. I've had such a great run. I have nothing to complain about at all.
Mhm. And what's your process once you receive a script? How do you approach the script? Do you have like your secrets? How do you get into like before you even start to audition, before you put yourself in front of the camera? What's your process? What's going on through your mind? What kind of questions do you ask yourself about the character? Do you have a process?
Um, I do. I find details of the process to be boring, quite frankly. To talk about.
Mhm,
But I would say, like I said earlier, my job is to make it real.
mhm,
And so basically, my process is to absorb the information I'm given in the script and then just let my imagination go wild with it. Just open up the floodgates, let it go,
yeah,
let everything, and just focus in on the story.
mhm,
Just stay with the story. Where does the story lead me?
yeah,
The script, and sounds kind of highfalutin or whatever the terminology today would be, but it's really, to me, it's serving a higher purpose. It's serving, meaning the script is the higher purpose. The
right,
playwright, the screenwriter is the higher. That's what I'm there to do. I'm
mhm,
there to service that as best I possibly can. And anytime I had any idea to throw in my own improvisation in a sequence on the show, I would go to the writer and say, "We've got this stuff the way you've written it, blah blah blah. I'd like to try something a little different if that's okay with you." And
mhm,
if they had any issue with it whatsoever, I backed off. I didn't push it. Um, so to make a long story short, I think the biggest part of my process is boils down to how willing am I to allow myself to be totally vulnerable to the story, to the content, to the circumstances of the piece that we're working on. And the
mhm,
more I'm able to give myself over to it and not bring Dirk into the equation, but
mhm,
just allow me to disappear into whomever it is I'm being asked to be, that's when the best work, in my view, happens. And it's not I don't take it lightly. I don't wing it. I'm not under winging it.
yeah,
Preparation is everything. I spend as much time as I possibly can imagining circumstance. That's really what I do. I try to imagine the life, the world that this is encompassing, and what my relationship is to the various people. And I do all this. I work as hard as I can for as much time as I'm allowed before I'm expected to show up. And then when I show up, I just try to let it all go. I just
mm,
forget all of it
mhm,
and then just focus on. I just focus,
mhm,
and it's all there. I mean, if you've done your work, it's all there. You don't have to reach for anything.
yeah,
If I have to work hard, then I realize I've screwed something up.
mhm,
It
yeah. What?
should be pretty easy. And I
Being
don't mean easy like simple. Well,
mhm,
simple, yes, not easy. Simple.
simple,
That's what I'm
simple,
trying to say.
simple is a good word. Yeah. What I'm hearing is basically you be an instrument to the story.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you serve as an instrument.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful, and it's also I feel like inspiring for actors out there who's trying to break in, who's trying to write. They always think about me, me, but it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about the story and serve the story.
Well, there's so many people with so many different approaches. That's one of the reasons I don't get into talking about it too
Mm,
much. But that's just how it works for me.
yeah.
And I don't question anybody's approach. If I believe you, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all that matters. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what you do, how you get there.
True.
You know, there are different ways to get there, and but what works for me, like you say, yeah, is serving the story. Just being a part of it, being a part of the story.
And I think I read somewhere online that you're also a writer. You wrote a book or a story. Could you please tell a little bit more about that?
Well, I probably hesitate to call myself a writer because I know what writers do and what their process tends to be, which means I shouldn't say process, but their work habits tend to be is they get up and write every day,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, or they stare at a blank page until something happens. And I don't do that. What happens to me is because I'm not a writer, but I'm pretty good with words, and I'm decent with punctuation, grammar, and so forth and so on. Is that I'll be inspired by something. I'll be inspired by a story I've read, a poem I've read, or an experience I've had. And if it inspires me to the point where I see, you know what, there's a story there. Because on one level, this happened to me while I was walking through the park, but what it speaks to on another level is what's happening in the country or happening to other people, and blah blah blah. So I've written poetry and I've written some stories, and I've got a couple of pieces published, and I had a children's. I was looking for it. I don't see it. Um, I wrote a children's fable in a workshop that I was in. And my wife is always my barometer, and she's also my main editor. She's somebody I can rely on because she's honest.
Hmm.
She can say not your best, and I don't take offense to it.
Yeah.
But when she says, that's really, you're onto something there. You've got
Mhm.
something going there. Keep with it. That's a good encouragement. That tells me I should probably keep trying. Well, when I read her this fable, and I wasn't sure about it because I'd never done anything quite like it before. It's a kind of a departure. She was very moved by it. I
Mhm.
mean, she was remarkably moved by it. And she went on to tell me, this is before I did Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Just before I did Brooklyn Nine-Nine, she wanted to tell me that she said, if you're ever able to, you should do something with that story. And I said, oh, okay, fine. And I just kind of put it off in the back of my head. And then after a season or two of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I said, well, let's see if we can't get this thing turned into a book.
Mhm.
And we did. And there was an art director on our show, um, Eric Skonis, and he's an incredible artist. He's a remarkable artist, and he and I got along real well.
Mhm.
And I asked him if he'd like to do some drawings for it because it probably would reach younger people better if it had illustrations to go
Mhm.
with it. And that was a hell of a process. It's a long. We worked really hard on it for a couple of years before we put it out, and
Mhm.
it's been very well received. And I mean, nothing like any kind of prizes or anything like that, but people have written to me to tell me how much it meant to them and so forth and so on. And I'm not really very good about selling these things, so I
Mhm.
had a website for a while, and that I kept up with it, and my wife and I would mail out books to people and this and that and the other, and I'd sign them for them and so forth and so on. But then I kind of lost interest. But it's
Wonderful.
still out there. It's still out there. If anybody wants one, I can always send them something. And I think what I'd like to do is, especially now that COVID is kind of backing down a lot, is I wouldn't mind going to some schools and maybe reading it and then handing them out to any kids who want them. I just give them away. That'd be all right.
That's great. So you have a son, right?
No, I don't have a
No,
son.
no. So
He
do you have
is no, I have a
Oh,
daughter.
sorry.
I have a daughter.
daughter? Daughter. Okay, we're gonna get a book for your daughter.
There you
Okay.
go.
How old is she?
Sure.
A little too old, but
How old? Oh, 20?
she's 18.
18. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No, she might still appreciate it.
She might still appreciate
Appreciate
it, but
it.
it's not going to be like her number one. It's actually, I didn't really write it with any age group in mind.
Mhm.
I just thought it's really for the young at heart. You
Mhm.
could be a kid,
Yeah.
in fact, I think as many people who bought the book who responded well to it, as many times it was the parents who contacted me
Mhm.
and said, "My kids love this book, but we got to tell you,
Yeah.
it's like, my God, what an incredible idea this is, and what a cool thing." So
What is the name of the book?
it's called Master and the Little Monk,
Monster Little Monk? Okay.
and it takes place in a temple in some distant place. Not sure if it's on this planet or somewhere else in the universe. That's all. None of that's really well defined. Doesn't need to be, in my view.
Mhm.
But it's about a young man at the temple who's been there his whole life, and but he's viewed as an outsider because he didn't show up there in the usual way, meaning that maybe a family decided it's time for our child to go and learn what he needs to learn by living at the temple for a year. This kid was an orphan who was
Mm.
dropped off at the temple, and
Here we go.
and he's got a tough life. He's got it kind of tough because he's the outsider and he's not
Mhm.
well treated. And he finds he unexpectedly finds an ally in a very unexpected way who helps him kind of figure some stuff out. So that's pretty much, without giving away the entire story, that's pretty much what
I'm
happens.
intrigued. I'm intrigued. I'm gonna buy it. Sol already found
Uh,
it on
uh,
Amazon. He already showed it to us. We're gonna get it. Well, tell me about your wife. How long you been together?
we have been together. She's going to kill me if I get this wrong. No.
I don't want to put you in trouble.
No, no,
Just
no, no. I've got to do the math. I mean, it's been a long time. We met in 83, but we kind of started dating in 84.
Mhm.
So whatever, that's been 16 and 23, 30, going on 40 years we've been together.
Wow.
We've been married since 1990. So
Hmm.
that's 33 years.
33 years.
See, I've got to be very,
Yeah.
very careful not to screw this up.
Yeah.
It'll be 33 years this November. Um, and we met, in a place that you would think would doom any relationship, because we met in an acting class.
Hmm.
Her father was an actor as well. Uh, and neither of us had any interest whatsoever in any kind of, we were both coming out of kind of relationships that ended badly. We were
Hmm.
both, quite a bit younger. And so the last thing either one of us wanted was any kind of relationship. But the teacher in the class was persistent, and he knew both of our fathers. He was an actor who knew both of our fathers. And one day he just put his arm around Danielle, is my wife's name, Danielle Aubuchon. And he put his arm around me and said, Dirk, Danielle, you need to meet. And I said, well, we've seen each other. And he said, no, you need to meet because your fathers are both in it. You guys should meet. And we actually became friends. We enjoyed each other's company. We started, we worked together in the class for one, and then we go out and have lunch once in a while and just shooting the bright breeze. And there was no pressure because neither one of us wanted anything from the other.
Hmm.
We just enjoyed each other's company. And then 6 months into it, roughly something like that, 4 or 5 months into it, someone was like, should we go out and have dinner, like a real date? I was like, maybe we should, okay. And that's how it got started. And that's where we've been now we've been together a long time. And things are, I can still consider myself the luckiest guy in the world. I mean, how could I have ever, and Danielle, for those who are hardcore Brooklyn Nine fans might know, in the beginning of the 5th season, one of the characters, Rosa, goes to prison. And in the opening segments, a couple of the characters go to visit her in prison, and she says, "What's Hitchcock?" Which is who I was in the show. What's Hitchcock doing here? It's like what's he doing here? So, oh, he's got a girlfriend in prison, and the producer called me and said, "Would your wife be interested in being your girlfriend in this thing in the prison?" My prison babe.
I love it.
And I said, let me ask her. I think she probably would, but let me ask her. And of course, she's like you. She's just like, yes, of course. That sounds like fun, So at any rate, there's some pretty funny moments in it's the prison episode. I think it's season 5, and it's the first episode where we have the plexiglass between us, but we're hot and bothered. We're making out. We're kissing the glass, and we're all but having sex through glass.
A glass.
And it's like, and they're all going, okay, that's enough. Like,
I have to watch it now. I want to see this episode.
Yeah. She's very funny. She's a terrific actress. She's done, in her case, she's done more theater than she has film and television, but she's quite good.
Have you ever, is this the only time you worked together, or was more times?
No, we've done plays together. We were in that workshop together. We've been in workshops together. But we did 2 plays together, and we did that. And then she had a role in a film I did called Trouble in Mind. And she just actually came there to visit me. And while we were there, they said, hey, we could, if you would like to, we could really use somebody who can talk and walk at the same time in this sequence. And she said, I'd love to. So she played a bit of a hooker in that one. So.
Your wife is fun. Danielle is fun.
She is fun. Her champions are Lucille Ball and Judi Dench and people like that. She goes for character people more than just about anything else. But she is quite lovely, I will add.
Incredible. Well, if have you ever thought of producing something, because you've been in the industry all your life?
That book was probably the closest thing to anything. We did. It's on Vimeo too. I did a recording of it for Vimeo with the artwork. It's not really my. No, it's not really my thing. I guess I've been so lucky as to just get work as an actor. I like showing up and pretending. Playing. Yeah. And same with directing. I know I could do it. I know I could, and I think I'd be pretty good at it because I've worked with young actors and I've worked with actors in general when they, I don't have a class or anything like that I teach, but I've through word of mouth and so forth and so on, I've had a few people come to me to ask me for help and I'm always happy to give them my perspective on things and talk about it. So I know I could do it,
Mhm.
but I just don't have the drive. I don't have the desire to do it. If I'm not preparing for a role or working on something, I'm playing the guitar and singing, because that really gives me, it calms me down. It gets me through the day. It's a lovely way to spend my time.
Well, you kind of answered my question because I was thinking to ask you if acting would not be an option, right? If the universe, God, whatever force tells you, okay, there is no more acting for you, what would you do in life?
Uh, well, I can tell you what I have done that I liked a lot when I wasn't in between jobs. Um, I went. I was a returning student later in my life, and I went back because I never went to college. I was acting right out of high school,
Hmm.
and but there was always this thing in the back of my head. My dad's voice. My dad was he was an educator before he was an actor,
Hmm.
and he really placed a high value on education. And he told all my siblings and all of us, the same thing. Was he said, I don't really care what you want to do with your life. Really, you can be anything and do anything you want. It's your life. But he said, I would recommend strongly to each and every one of you that at the very least you get a liberal arts education,
Hmm.
which gives you an exposure to just about every field, kind of,
Right.
a little bit of science, a little bit,
Hmm.
blah blah blah, and see where that takes you. And so, like I say, I was late returning. I went back to college in my 40s, and I got a degree. I got a degree from Antioch University in liberal studies, and from there, then I was like, okay, because I kind of took a back seat to my career for a while. I worked occasionally when people would call up and say, "Do you want to do this?" I'd say, "If I can make it work with my schedule, I will."
Hmm.
But my schooling became my priority for a while,
Hmm.
and anyway, when I finished it, I thought, well, now I got to pay these these student
Loans.
loans, these student loans. How am I going to do? So I need to do something, and now that I've been away from acting for several years, it's not like the phone's ringing.
Hmm.
So I went in and got I took the test and got my teaching certificate,
Hmm.
and I became a teacher, and I really loved it. The only thing that I couldn't do is I couldn't commit to. I would tell anybody I worked for, um, that here's the deal: if that call I've been waiting for a while comes in, if somebody, because sometimes people I've worked for 20 years ago will call up and say, "Are you retired? Do you want to?"
Yeah.
And I say, "Yeah, I want to. Yeah, I'd love to." So I'd say, there may come a time when I'll give you as much notice as possible, but I might have to stop to work as an actor.
Hmm.
But I really enjoyed teaching. I really enjoyed that a lot. And I taught everything that was any place they needed a hole filled. That was my job.
Hmm.
From the community college where I live to, I started even with young kids, and I couldn't do that. I have such a respect for early educators, early age educators, because for me it was like wrangling cats. I just couldn't. I was so afraid that one of them was going to get away from me and leave the classroom.
Yeah.
So I was constantly counting heads and calling roll, and I was so freaked out
Yeah,
because
worried.
they were just running all they're just everywhere, cute as they could be,
Yeah.
but still made me nervous. So I stopped that. I then it was like from like 10 years old on up, I'll take anything. I'll teach whatever you guys. So teachers would sometimes unfortunately break a leg or something and need to be
Mhm.
gone for a few months. I'd take over their class. I
Nice.
would fill in occasionally as a substitute, but that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. But even then, I got that sometimes led to other opportunities when the teacher would say, "I've got a 2 week sabbatical to go learn this new thing they're teaching in Colorado, and could you please come in and teach my class?" I said, "Yeah, I can, so long as they understand that if I have an opportunity, I'm going to take it." And
Yeah.
that's what happened. I was teaching when Brooklyn Nine-Nine called. So
Yep. So you never know when's the call gonna come in.
that's right.
That's the beauty of this industry. You never know.
You never know. But I, having experienced that, I could see myself having been a teacher.
Teacher. Yeah, I can see that too. Your energy is very like calm and soothing and very nurturing. It's yeah, I can
Oh,
see that.
oh, Well, I just did, you know what, I really cared about the students. And
Mm-hmm.
once they got that I wasn't there just because I needed a
Yeah.
job, but I was actually there, that I really did care about them, and I really would listen to them, and I would make sure that they understood that it was important for me to know what was going on in their world while we were talking about this and that and the other. That they then became Some of them became really good students, not
Mm-hmm.
not because of me, but because they had the opportunity to be in a situation that they felt supported in, and they
Mm-hmm.
felt, someone was taking care of them.
Um,
I,
and
I had I had I just sorry I just but I it reminds me, I did have one situation where I had this young girl in one of my classes, and she was the kind of person you'd ask her, okay, what do you think, Gabrielle? I don't
mhm.
remember her name, but she'd be like, well, I think that I could, and I say, okay, well, wait a second, I can't hear you, and if I can't hear you, nobody else can, and we all need to know what you have to say, because what you have to say is really important. So please, could you repeat that? Well, I was just thinking, could you speak up a little louder? So that became a thing during the like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it was that I was in that class. And finally, she got to the point where she was starting to speak up towards the end of it, and we became very close, she and I. And on my last day, I felt this tug. I was trying to put things away. I felt this tug, and I looked down, and there she was. And I said, "What do you need? Everything okay?" And she went, "Oh," I said, "Oh, come on. You can you can speak up. You need to
Copy.
speak up. We understand it." And then I thought, well, wait a second. Maybe this is a private thing. She doesn't need
Mm-hmm.
anybody else to hear. So I got down next to her. I said, "What is it?" She said, "I said you need hearing aids."
She took a completely different direction.
Yeah. I thought, man, you you couldn't write something that real.
That's
That
so
was a real
funny.
thing.
She's like, let me help him out.
Yeah,
He's like, this poor man probably doesn't know he
yeah.
has an issue.
He he can't hear a goddamn thing.
Anything. That's funny. You see, she didn't took it personally. She was like, oh, he just cannot hear me. That's the
Yeah, that's
problem.
right. Yeah, right, right.
That's funny story. Well, if you can continue working with somebody on set, who you would take with you? Do you have a favorite actor, director?
Well, everybody I worked with on Brooklyn was just tops.
Yeah.
I mean, and the reoccurring characters and guest stars
Mhm.
like yourself. You know, I mean, that was, like I said, that was a terrific experience. I've worked with people. I've become friends with a few people over the years. Usually, people get together and it's like a big family,
Yeah.
and let's stay in touch, just
Hmm.
like in high school or
Yeah.
something. And then you realize 2 or 3 years have passed and you haven't said a word to that person or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did a series back in the late '70s called Baba Black Sheep or Black Sheep Squadron. It
Yeah.
was a World War II thing. And two of the guys from that show I've stayed in touch with. One's John Larroquette, who's done exceedingly well for himself, obviously. He's
Hmm.
such a talented guy. And Jim Whitmore Jr., who was an actor at the time, but he's become a director since then. But we've been friends. I'd work with either one of those guys in a heartbeat. I'd love to do work with those guys. But I've worked with tons of really good people. There's somebody who I mean, I admire. I've always admired people who are really funny.
Hmm.
When I was a kid, I would watch Johnny Carson and shows like that,
Yeah.
especially on nights when Jonathan Winters was there, or Richard Pryor was
Mr.
there,
Pryor. Yeah.
or any of the greats. I would like stop what I was doing and like, no, 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 I can't do that. I've got to watch
Hmm.
Jonathan Winters. I got to watch Richard Pryor. I got to watch George Carlin. I've got to watch Richard Klein,
Hmm.
whoever it was. Some of the people who had just made me howl. And so like today, there's Martin Short is like to me one of the funniest human beings that
Hmm.
ever existed anywhere. Who doesn't want to work with people like he and Steve Martin
Hmm.
and people like that? I think this. I always afraid I'm going to screw up his name, but Zach Galifianakis I think is his name. He's hilarious to
Yeah.
me.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know. You know what? Sometimes the biggest surprise is working with somebody you've never seen or heard of, and they turn out to be phenomenal. So
Phenomenal. Yeah.
that and Andre Brower was everybody in our show was so much fun. But I
Hmm.
really treasured I treasured just being around Andre
Yeah.
because he was closer to my age. I was the oldest guy there, but he was closer to my age. So he and I would get off on the tangents in between scenes. With just so much fun. He's such a smart guy, and we would enjoy it. But everybody on that show,
Hmm.
I'd jump at the chance to work with any one of them.
Yeah, that set was something very special. Like I wish
Yeah,
every actor would experience it in this lifetime. It's a family. You walk in and everybody from makeup artists, from directors and actors, it's a family.
it's true.
It was
It's
beautiful.
true. Yeah, I would tell production assistants and guest stars who say, "God, this is my first job. I'm a little nervous." Whatever, I'd say, "Don't worry about it. Everything's good. Everybody takes care of each other here. You're going to be fine." I said, "But just remember this: they're not all going to be like this.
Yep.
This is really a rare opportunity.
There.
Enjoy every minute of this, because I've worked on shows that were like, who do I have to kill to get off this thing? This is I've never not enjoyed the work itself. When the cameras roll and
Yeah.
we're action, let's go. That's great. But sometimes the drama, or the backstage in a theater, sometimes the drama off stage is like, God, if we could just capture this energy, this level of drama
Hmm.
on stage or on camera,
Yeah.
we'd win every award that ever existed. But instead, it's all being wasted by these tantrums and weirdness that go on. People are, it's a stressful business. It can be for some people. But I would say this: if it's really, really stressful, there's probably a better approach. There's
Mm.
probably a better way to go about it.
Yeah, but
It needn't be.
yeah, it doesn't need to be stressful. But I'm
No.
curious, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, what do you think was this like the secret of this success? Why it's so well, this it's amazing writing and amazing actors, but how did it happen that it's such a family vibe and environment? Was it like that from day one, or it
Yeah,
evolved, or it was from
it
day one?
really, it was, it really was. It was like we all just fit. We all
Mm-hmm.
just on doing the pilot. So I've got to give a lot of that credit to Allison Jones,
Mm-hmm.
who was the casting director on the show. She put this group together. She
Yeah.
saw, and I think Mike Schur and Dan Gore had their ideas of. I think Terry Crews was somebody they had in mind. I
Mm-hmm.
think they were really, really hoping to have Andre Brower, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they didn't know if they could get him or not. I don't think. And of course, Andy was part of the original group too, because
Yeah.
he was one of the producers. But other than that, Allison Jones brought all the actors in to audition, and she has that secret ingredient going. She does this all the time. She casts people, and her. I don't know her well. I don't know her personally, socially at all. But I would say that she had a really unique and interesting way, from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
of how she went. Because the first time I met her, I'd been brought in to read for a part on The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was The Office, and we read the thing. She said, "That excellent. That's great. Thank you. That's what we're looking for. That's fantastic. Do you have a few minutes?" I was going, "Yeah. What?" I thought she was going to say, "I'd like for you to read this other part or something,"
Yeah.
because that happens once in a while. And she said, "I just like to get to know you, if that's okay." And I said, "Well, of course. Yeah, sure." And she and I just hit it off like we were old friends. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we just talked about this, that, and the other, until it was finally she was like, "Oh God, I've got to go. I'm sorry," but we talked for 45 minutes, something like that.
Wow.
And I didn't get the part, but I thought, who cares? I met a
Mm-hmm.
really interesting, decent human being. So
Person.
who
Yeah.
cares if I got the part or not? That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. That's much more important to me, meeting somebody, than getting a part of the show.
Yeah.
And then I was doing a play in Oregon and got a call that here is a part for you in the office. And I said, "Well, great." I said, "The producers understand that. They've got an understudy. I can come down there for that." And then I heard back from her through my agent saying, "You know what? Whoa, 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 whoa. It's not a really big part. Don't leave Oregon. Don't leave the play to do this part. If it was a bigger part, we would say that's great.
Yeah.
But don't come to Los Angeles just to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a huge thing." And I was disappointed because I really wanted to work on The Office, but that's okay. I was also enjoying the hell out of the play I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
having a blast. So, but then I hadn't heard from her in quite a while. So I just thought, well, who cares? She's a good person, and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then Brooklyn came along, and it was like, would he be willing to come in? My agent said, she wants to know. I said, "Allison Jones, really?" And she said, "Yeah, it's a pilot. And she wants to know if you'd be willing to come in, because it's like possible reoccurring. It's not a big part in the pilot. No promises or anything else. I said, well, you know anything else about it? And said, well, it's Dan Gore, Mike Schur, and Andy Samberg. And I said, oh my God,
Am I wailing?
who do I have to kill to get in that office?
Yeah.
Let me go in there and try to get this part. Hell yeah, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And seeing her at that audition again just brought back all those. I was so comfortable with her. I just trusted her 100%. And I thought this is going to be fun. They had to piece together different things for me to read because there wasn't enough really in the pilot to read much.
Yeah.
But so we read a few things, and then she put it on tape and she said, thank you. And I'm like, then literally like 2 days later or something, I'm leaving a high school campus from work. and I have like 15 messages. I hadn't been checking my phone.
Yeah.
And it was like, where are you? What are you going? Hey, call me. Dirk, you got to call me. I got to call me. And it's like, and then when I finally, so I was halfway through listening to him, I called her and said, what's going on? What's happening? She said, you got it. And I said, I got what? And she said, the pilot. And I said, the pilot. She said, the Andy Samberg, and I went, oh my God, fantastic. And she said, but you got to call them back because they need to do a wardrobe fitting and they're going to start next week. And I went, hot shit. That's so cool.
That's the best feeling, right? One of the best feelings.
It's a good one.
That's a good one.
one.
Well, we have to wrap up, and I wish we could speak more because I have so much more questions for you. So I'd love to have you back because it's so inspirational and educational, and it's very interesting talking to you.
Well, that's very sweet of you to say, and by all means, if you'd like for that to happen, I'm sure we can make that happen.
Thank you so much, Dirk. Thank you for being awesome. Stay awesome.
Thank you for being awesome. Stay awesome yourself. You're kicking butt on the comedy stages across America. Keep doing it, baby.
Thank you. Thank you, Dirk. Talk soon.
Talk to you later. Okay.
You're amazing. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, guys. It's gonna be up. Oh, well, I'm gonna actually add some clips from Brooklyn Nine-Nine for that episode, so we're gonna have it included. Thank you guys for watching, and go buy Dirk's book. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy his book. Thank you.